Hello and welcome to Open School of Business. Today I have a pleasure of introducing to you Vladimir Chen. He's a book author, transformational coach, and he had a really great career in tech, being a product and project manager. So I'm really excited, and I'd like to start off, Vladimir, by telling us about yourself and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, well, Anna, thank you so much for inviting me to your show, to your podcast. I'm really privileged and humbled to be here. So, yeah, these days I'm working as a life and leadership coach, and I've made my transition about eight months ago. So I'm still a new coach. But I've been also coaching on the side for about 1.5 years while I still had my corporate job. So from that standpoint of view, it was a gradual transition for me. So I had my fears as well, and but because I was coaching on the side, I was getting some experience. It made me more confident to make this leap and fully transition into full-time coaching. So now I've been coaching for 9 months almost full-time, and I'm working with leaders and entrepreneurs. I help young managers or managers, team leads become more effective leaders. And I'm also working on the more personal development side with people who want to stop procrastinating and start doing what's important in their life.
Wow, that's amazing. So what was the first interest you had in coaching, and how did you decide that the career you were leading in your life wasn't something you want to do anymore?
Right. So actually, I never wanted to become coach. It's not something that, I had a dream of becoming. And actually, I had a good, product management / project management job. Very well paid, stable. And at some point in time, I was promoted, and I call it, I became basically an accidental manager. So my manager, few weeks probably into my new role, she asked me, would you like to become a manager one day? And I almost immediately said, no, I'm not interested. And then we had a talk, and basically that's where we left off. And a few years later, there was an opportunity because I started to what I call in my book, become with intention. So, become a better version of myself and work on myself and explore, be on a self-discovery journey. And I became a manager, and I embraced that opportunity. But I learned after a honeymoon that I was not an effective manager. So, after that honeymoon, problems and challenges started to occur and hit the ground. And I basically decided that I needed to do something about it. I needed to become a better and a more effective manager. And so I, with that mindset, I started to invest and really research what it is that I can do. And I believe that everything happens for a reason, and there was an opportunity to invest in a leadership program online, and I invested into it. And sure enough, after a few months, my leadership style changed because I started to understand, how our mind works, how people work, how to become a better listener, and how to empower people. And once I started to do that, I fell in love with it. I truly, truly deeply fell in love with it because I started to connect with people on a much deeper level. Before, it was more on a project level. I became a manager, and at some point in time, I was a manager of 20 people. And in the beginning, it was more of somebody comes to you and you want to help them on the project level. I call it sometimes surface level. And that is fine. That's what managers do. But there's another piece of it. There's a more in-depth piece of it. To become being a manager or being an effective leader, we really need to be, emphasize and be compassionate towards our people and towards ourselves, frankly. And so I learned how to become that empathetic manager or leader and I learned how to listen and really deeply connect with people. And as I started to do that, I just, as I said earlier, I fell in love with this. And every single time before, if I dreaded, having one-to-one meetings, after that experience, I was waiting. Every single one-to-one was an experience, because I was, deeply connecting to every one of the team members on my team. And that's when I learned about myself that, oh my God, I actually love doing it. I actually love facilitating people's insight and growth through empowerment, by being a better listener. And then, I just started to coach on the side as a side gig. So, and as a side gig, it was just, reached out to my network and said, I actually called this initiative coaching. It was called, coaching for coffee. So it was just asking my, network, if you would like to be coached, if you, feel like stuck, if you feel like you want to do something more or achieve more, then basically buy me coffee, I'll coach you. And that's how I started to get experience. I started to coach pretty much every week, while my daughters were skating. They skate almost every day. But, I was coaching mostly on weekends. And that's how I started to get experience. And, the more I coached, the more confident I became. And at some point in time, I made a decision fully transition into full-time coaching.
Wow, what a great way to start your career, because side hustles are always a way to transition without too much disruption. So that is really great. And now that you are doing it full-time, are you still at the startup level, or do you feel like you are, how to speak, you reach your capacity, like you can't take up any more clients, or what is your capacity right now? I think that's the more direct question. Yeah.
So right now, where I am in terms of clients, I have enough clients to basically be fully occupied. Sometimes I have 3 coaching sessions, and that is a lot. Like, I had a conversation with my coach, and she said, if you have 2 coaching sessions, that's enough. And I do it mostly 1.5 hours each. So right now it's pretty much, full calendar, but, I'm always working on getting new clients, because, it's all about, because, one of the difference between being in corporate or having a job and being your own boss, well, nobody comes to you and says, here's the check. You need to go get out there, and you need to, connect with people, and you need to see what, let's say, challenges or issues they're going through, and if this is something that I can help them with. So I'm starting out, definitely. It's not that, I have like a fire hose of clients. I'm still on the lookout. I'm still connecting. I'm still building relationships. But at the same time, looking at sort of where I am right now, I'm going towards the 6-figure business this year.
Very good. Very good. It's really amazing that you've mentioned that you've started as a side hustle, and that you're transitioning, and you've already full-time coaching. Do you know, can you share with us sort of like some kind of a target audience that you've seen that shaped up? Like, from your experience as a product manager, you always know that if you have a certain service or product, your clients, they have a certain job to be done, and that can maybe like unify them. Sometimes it's a certain demographic because of your own network that you own and you have. How is that for you? Like, can you tell us more about your ideal customer? Or the customer that you are experiencing most of the time?
Sure. Yeah, I'm working with managers, the people who want to become better and more effective leaders. But as I said, I'm also working with people who, in the corporate world, and they want to feel happier at work. They want to make more money, and they want to also understand what is the next step for them. And quite often what I see, people that I work with, they are going through some difficult times right now in terms of feeling confused, like what it is that I want to do next, or they're feeling a little bit overworked and overwhelmed. And so, for example, I work with some clients who just on the verge of, when they came to me, on the verge of, burnout and feeling overworked because, they're just taking so much on themselves, on their shoulders. And they are either overachievers and they cannot stop, or they are, sometimes, I also work with people who, and mostly it's coming from managers, their bosses, who are underperforming right now, but they have a great potential. So that would be either team leads who are underperforming, or it could be, people who have a great potential who can grow into a managerial role.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And what is the way you tap into these audiences? How do you usually find out that someone needs help, or how do they find out about you, let's say?
Mm-hmm. So right now, most of my business is referral based. So because when I started out, I started working with a few people, and then it just grew because people started to refer me to people that they know, other companies. But I also do it through my network. So that would be, reaching out to people, building relationships, and understanding where they are in life or maybe in career, and seeing if there's any synergy we can build together. So if perhaps, I just reached out recently or spoke with somebody I knew I worked with in the previous company, and now he's in a different company, and he is he's a CMO, so marketing officer, chief marketing officer. So, and he, sees especially during COVID times, right, where teams experience difficulties, like, finding that right balance or the right boundary between work and life. Work and life balance. And so oftentimes they would overwork themselves. It's hard for us to stop. And, we've all experienced that, when we bring work home and we feel productive and we work, but then all of a sudden it's 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock PM, right? And then, I know that I need to stop, but sometimes it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah. I think we've all been there, and with the pandemic, it has posed a little bit more challenges, but also opportunities. And I've seen that you used your opportunity. Here comes the book. So there was a 739 days of book publishing journey, right? That's what you mentioned in your social.
Right.
And I was amazed. I was like, yeah, that's really cool. So tell us more about that journey and about your book.
Yeah, with my pleasure. Yeah. It started out actually not as a serious project, to be honest. It just started out as me wanting to put down on paper or, digitally my thoughts, things that I learned. As I said to you earlier, I embraced or embarked on a self-discovery journey because I just wanted to get more out of life. I wanted to become with intention and live to the fullest, or live with purpose. Sometimes we say it, right? And it was just and kind of an experimental project, right? So I was just writing. So I called it, in my Google Keep, a tool that I use, I call it chapter thoughts. It's like a folder, and I have chapter thoughts. And every single day I would just write, sometimes, half a page, sometimes just one paragraph, a few lines. And I would do it every day. And at some point, I don't remember exactly how many months into this process, I was having a breakfast on Saturday, and my daughters, they came up to me and they said, "You know what, Dad? We think you should write a book." and I was just eating, and I'm like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we think that you should write a book." I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." And so without so much thinking, I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it. I wanted to do it. And now you're, inviting me to do it. And I've been writing I've been writing consistently. So why not, set that dream, that target for yourself? Honestly, I didn't know how I'm going to arrive there. Like, I didn't know anything about self-publishing. I didn't know about, the process, none of it. The only thing that I knew, just by doing a little bit of research on Google, is just, there are few steps that we can take or can make for us to be basically moving forward. Like, for example, writing every single day. And that's what I started to do. I said, okay, it was, I think, a YouTube video where I watched that video, and the guy was talking about just write every single day. That's it. Write every single day. And so I made a little game for myself. I can also show it later if you want to, if you're interested. But I basically started to make Post-its, every single time, every single day I would write a day. So it would be like day number, day 1. And then I would write how many words I wrote that day. And so, and I would stick that note up on the wardrobe door, and then it became, fun, like a fun game. And what I also started to do, I started to, because I wanted to have an accountability partner, and I basically started to record myself for 15 seconds on Instagram as a story, and I would put it up on Instagram and Facebook, basically sharing my journey. Every single day I would be doing this for the entire process. And yeah.
Wow. I love that, because you were already building your audience while writing as well. So did all of your Instagram followers buy the book? They should, because they're part of it.
Absolutely right. I mean, everyone who saw my videos, they knew basically that I was writing. And sometimes, I would see some people who I know personally, and they would invite us over their place and like, so when are you planning to finish your book? So everyone knew that. All right. And then now when the book is out, some people bought it. Some people I'm like, hey, did you buy a book? And they're like, yeah, I'm going to buy it. So, but there's going to be some follow-up needed because, things get in the way, life happens and yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing story. How old are your kids? The ones that came up with the idea.
Yeah, so they were 8 and 9 back in time, but now they're 10, 12. So I have 2 daughters. So my daughters came up to me, and I have a son. He's 4.5 years old now.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think it's really awesome that you were already in the process of something you love doing it, and then it became a product.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I also love unfolded along the way, kind of, right? Because I was exploring, and I didn't know how it would, turn out to be. And as I was doing it more and more, then I, started to learn about myself, what I wanted to do, what I liked. Yeah.
Yeah, I love self-help books. That's why whenever we have a guest on Open School of Business, I ask everyone about their favorite books. I mean, it can be a fiction as well, depending on if it left an impression on the guest. So, what are your favorite books?
I believe that books will come into our life in the right time. And one of my favorites, if not the most favorite book, is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And the reason, actually, it's just behind me. And the reason I love this book, actually, I think it's a funny story, because I got actually that copy of the book, 20 years ago, something like that. So basically when I was studying my bachelor's back in Tashkent. But I didn't read it. I just read a few pages, and I loved, a few illustrations, and I thought, wow, this is a fun book, but I never finished it. And now, like 20 years later, I just picked up that book, and I thought, you know what? I think, I'll just read it. And as I started to read it, a lot of things resonated with me, which I applied. When I started to live with more intention, I applied to my life, and I started to basically do a lot of experiments. One of the things that I also talk about in my book is that we already know enough for us to start doing things. We think that, oh, I don't know this, I don't know that, I don't have money, I don't have, I don't know people. No, most of the time, we already have enough for us to start doing. And sure, there is going to be times that we need to have a skill, we need to have, our access to the right people. Of course, that will be part of the process. But for where we are right now, in 99% of the time, we already know and have enough for us to get going. And as we get going, as we start doing things, we'll get creative along the way. And sometimes we will need to get resources, but most of the time we need to be resourceful and have resourcefulness to create, what we want to create. And so 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is by far my favorite book, but I have a few others that have tremendously impacted my journey, such as Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Morning. If you want to optimize your day, if you want to show up to your day, on a sort of, grounded, with more intention note, then, start your day. There is a beautiful note, the quote, by Benjamin Franklin, early to bed, early to rise, what makes men healthy, wealthy, and wise. And the Miracle Morning book is, basically teaches you, inspires you to become an early riser. And that's actually one of the things that I did early on in my journey. I wanted to wake up earlier and before my family and start spending time on my basically self development and personal development and self growth. And that's how I started to, see things like challenges as opportunities. And, a lot of things started to change for me.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, I love that book as well. And I can tell the same thing. I knew about the book even way before when I was younger. And then actually it kind of grows on you while you become older. So it's something that I think definitely more mature people need for sure to read. But then in the beginning, it sounds somewhat obvious when you're younger, when you read that. And then, but then you realize how amazingly useful it is.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you know what? And I quite often go to this book, and sometimes when I talk to clients, sometimes I would show illustration, but every single time when, when I reread a book, and, there's always something that I pick, because we can't remember everything, but, and we can get a new perspective. And this is what I love about, rereading and sometimes also rewatching rewatching good movies. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So I'm also very curious to find out about your book, how it is different or similar to some of this amazing classics in self-help.
Right. As I said, first of all, I've been inspired. When I was writing, I basically wrote my book feeling inspired. So, all of the knowledge that I have is, none of it would be possible if I didn't pick, that wisdom from those people, right? So there's a huge credit, to those people, in the acknowledgements section, I mentioned them. So from that perspective, it's standing on the shoulders of giants, for sure. Definitely. So, and, I think there is almost close to 50 references in my notes that I've used one way or another. But one thing that is definitely, so from that perspective, there's a lot of, like you can say, similarities in terms of, frameworks, concepts, and sometimes tools and principles, right? Because much of what I write about, it's not like it's whoa, it's groundbreaking, it's revolutionary. There are a few things that I bring on the table, my frameworks, a few of my frameworks that are completely new. So it's something that you can say structured and packaged and present material and content in such a way that it's easier for the reader to understand. And I always supplement this with hopefully an interesting story that people can relate to, because basically what I also I'm inviting readers to explore their self-discovery journey, and I share, sometimes either it's my struggles, my own pains, or maybe somebody else who was going through something that I share anonymously. But it is you can say a combination of two, you can say, big paradoxical sides. On one side, it is how to enjoy, ourselves more, live in the present moment, live, more consciously, more mindfully, where self-acceptance and self-love is ever present. And on the other hand, how can we achieve, can we get what we want at the same time? So, all the dreams that we have, all the goals that we set for ourselves. And it's that balance between those two. So how to, live more mindfully, more consciously, more in the present moment while still achieving big dreams. And that's what basically what the art of being while becoming book is all about.
Wow. I love the title. And when I saw your background being in UI UX and doing product management work, I thought, oh, no wonder. Your cover is amazing, beautiful, and the title has so much meaning while being very attractive and appealing. So I'm wondering what other things you used from your previous career in helping your coaching journey, in helping your book becoming a success that it is right now. What are the things you used? You have so much, wealth of experience from coming from a big industry.
It's not like I sat down and reflected on everything, right, that I'm using, but there are a few things that I can mention for sure that, have helped me to get where I am, right? So, tapping into as you said, the wealth of experience that I have. So one of the things that I early on learned in my career, and, I have a bit of perfectionist background. And it's not like I knew about it. About myself. That it's just something that in the project setting, I experienced this sometimes, when we needed to get something out and I'm like, no, we need to do this and this and that. And I'm like, and somebody would tell me, when we get it out, we can perfect it later. Yeah. We can tweak it. We can make it better. And that's one of the things that I learned about, being in the product environment, that it doesn't matter, because we can get so hung up on making it so perfect. And then when we get it out, nobody wants it. So we need to find that what is that minimal viable product that we can get out, and then we start getting feedback, and based on this feedback, we can iterate on this. So that is one thing that I learned, and that is something that I've totally used in this process as well. Because if I were to apply or adopt my perfectionist mind, nothing would have happened, I think. Yeah, and I think the other thing is also coming from the project management / product management experience, is that when we embark on a product, on a journey, on a project, I think it's so super useful to be to plan, to do a bit of planning, but then we need to be also flexible along the way, because things will always happen in the way that we didn't anticipate or didn't expect or didn't think about. And we need to be okay with that as part of the process. So the more we can manage those expectations and lower them and be okay with that, I think the better we feel about it. And it's going to be a more enjoyable process, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the last one, so this is the third one. It's more about probably managerial experience that I had, because oftentimes we say, oh, it's my people, it always have to be about them, like, it's nurturing them, developing them, and so on and so forth, right? Yes, that's true, right? When we are managers, when we're leaders, everything is about people, because, at the end of the day, it's a group of people who produce these results, right? But at the end of the day, it's all about us as leaders at the same time. So it's all about, and this is something that, directly quoted from my mentor and coach, Michael Neal, it's all about our people, yet it's all about ourselves. So whenever we experience, whether it's a challenge, whether it's, a problem, an issue, we always need to start by looking at ourselves, what it is that we can do better in this situation. Back to the 7 habits of highly effective people, the circle of influence, what it is that I can do in a given situation to turn things around. And so that's another thing that I learned about this process. Maybe not so much applicable to the book project, but definitely something that I'm utilizing in coaching all the time.
I love that you mentioned it, because I think for coaching is so important not to project your own ideas or perspectives onto a client. And I think that's a challenging. I wonder, what do you have to say about that? How to deal with that situation?
Well, I mean, honestly, this is an ever learning process, right? So, and I think the more we, or the less we project, definitely the more impactful I think the experience is going to be. And you are absolutely right that we need to stay neutral. We need to stay present, and it's not about just this is what's happening right now. It's coaching is more, I see it as a co-creation exploration process, and it's an invitation to facilitate the person's insight, because we already have that insight. We already know for the most part of it, we know all the answers. It's just we're getting so much in our noisy thinking, insecurities, fears, and chatter voice, and all of that self-talk, right? Inner critic, that we just forget how to access that we already have access to, and yeah, that's another worthwhile thing to mention.
Yeah, I'm glad that you wrote a book, because you were already doing it. So in that sense, your kids were your coach, saying, this is a book you should publish. It's amazing. And in this journey, when you just started, how did you make a decision whether to go self-publishing or try to secure a contract? Is that something you plan in the future, maybe? After this experience?
Definitely, I do not exclude a possibility to go through a publisher route. However, for this experience, for this project, it was almost a no-brainer to me. And the reason why it was because I did a bit of research, and I learned that there are, of course, pros and cons. But one of the things that I liked about this route, self-publishing route, is that it's just felt, faster to market. Like I have an idea, and I'm gonna write, and then I don't need to worry about contacting publishers, seeing where they are in the process, and it just felt more straightforward. Now, I also knew the downsides, like I needed to do all of the heavy lifting and promotion and whatnot, right? So, but I enjoyed learning about this process. Now I know how it works, and it will definitely take me, maybe twice as long, or twice as short amount of time, and then maybe in the future, when I have more experience, I write better quality of content, because we always evolve.
Yes.
Maybe I will reach out to publishers and explore this opportunity. But I also, recently I went to this mastermind with my coach and mentor, Larry Winget, and he told a group of people that self-publishing route, and by the way, there were a lot of coaches and consultants and authors, people who have written books already, that self-publishing route these days is most of the time is the answer for a lot of authors. And the reason being is because he said he's 6 times he's a 6-time New York Times bestseller author himself. He's written gazillions of books. Like, I think, that day when he had all the books, we counted like 26 or something. So he's written many books, but he himself said, like, for the recent book that he wanted to publish, he couldn't get a publisher deal. And he has written so many books. He had to do it in the self-publishing way. So, and he said some of the questions that publishers ask, like, how many followers do you have? Like, do you have 1 million of followers? And not everyone has 1 million followers, right? So there are a few questions that publishers ask. And if you have, if you're meeting that criteria, you will have a better chance to get it published through their, channels. But otherwise, in most of the cases, it's going to be self-publishing way from a lot of authors.
Right. Yeah, I do definitely agree on the fast to market is a big advantage for sure. And then it's amazing if they get the publishing contract. But then for someone who already has 1 million of real followers, that is, it may be unnecessary as well at that point. I have no idea. I mean, everyone has to evaluate according to their title and the audience and everything. But a lot of entrepreneurs definitely choose self-publishing. And I've had some guests as well who did that. Can you shed some light into the economics of it and the investment that range for someone starting out?
Sure, absolutely. There are a few things that the number will range and depend on, but let's say the basics, the absolute must-have things, it will probably range between, again, based on my experience, between 5,000 to 10,000 US dollars to get it published. So that means that editor work, formatting work, design work, things like this. They if you're not doing it yourself, then you will need to outsource it to other people. And there are plenty of people. If people go to like sites like 99 Designs, Fiverr, or I think there's what is it called, a former Odesk. I forgot the website, but basically these websites people can go to, and they can hire a professional to do, whether it's design, formatting, or editing work. And so these are you can say the main costs. But then there are other costs. Let's say if you want to work with a coach to be guided throughout the process, and you want to be held accountable to actually get it done, so milestone after milestone after milestone, then obviously there's going to be also a cost associated with that. And oh my goodness, it was such an important decision, a clever, or I think it was a good decision for me to hire a coach, because remember I said it was, you mentioned, I said 739 days. That's what it took. But for the first 1.5 years, I was just writing. And actually all of my, scripts or manuscripts, they're just piled up there. And if I look at that process, it was just so messy. And that's no wonder why I was just writing, and it took so much, like, comparatively. It took 1.5 years plus then 6 months after I hired a coach. In 6 months, I got it done. Mm-hmm. It's just because for the first 1.5 years, I was here and there. I was just, I think it was also on LinkedIn, I made a post, 3 big mistakes that I made. First mistake, I didn't have a nice outline, a mind map for what it is I'm writing. I was just writing my thoughts, and fine, I would get them down on paper, but it was just too much. There was no structure, there was no outline, there was no mind map. That is one thing that I missed. And once I hired my coach, she advised me that this is what I do, and everything started to flow much better, because then I had that structure to follow, which made it so much easier in the process. And then the second mistake that I made, it was I didn't have, what was that? I didn't have the let me just I didn't hire a coach, right? I didn't hire a coach. That is the second mistake. But the third mistake, it was me editing all the time while writing. So that was actually just flew out of my head for a second, and I needed to remember that. But basically, I was writing and editing at the same time for the first 1.5 years. Big mistake. I know it's one of the things that they say in the self or in the writing world. You don't need to edit until you have that first draft. Now, you can have a few edits here and there, but it wasn't the case for me. I was editing all the time. And you know what happens when you edit all the time? You get caught up in details, you want to perfect it, and you lose track, and you go back, and suddenly it's just taking so much more time. Instead, what was helpful for me, you can write. You can follow that structure, that you define, and then you can get to the finish line, your first draft, and then you can rewrite it. Then you can start editing. That's what happened in the second half, in the second part of my journey. So basically the last 6 months, because I was just writing. I want to get to the finish line, and boom, it happened. And then it was easier for me to start editing and get to the second draft, and so on and so forth.
Wow. Yeah, I agree with that. I've heard those advices before, but I think it's still the perfection that we want to do. I mean, I don't want to judge or project on you, right? But I think I'm also an immigrant coming from Kazakhstan, living in the U.S. You're an immigrant from Uzbekistan, living in Denmark, right?
Right.
Getting caught up trying to perfect the English, I have a feeling that maybe it's something that we do as immigrants, but also I've heard that, American writers, they do that as well, and that takes up a lot of time. But in your opinion, have you faced with certain challenges that were you would attribute for you being an immigrant, and how do you overcome them? How do you dealt with that?
In terms of book writing, or in terms of coaching?
In general,
or both?
I think both, yeah, because I think it's a big challenge when you're so to speak, a foreigner in a country and you're trying to teach them. So, like, how do you manage that? Is it challenging, or is it advantageous? I don't know the situation in Denmark. That's another probably interesting layer to talk about. Right.
Well, speaking of my own experience, when I came first, right, I was 21 years old, immature, like didn't try a lot of things, and I just came to study and got my first job and decided to stay, right? So obviously there were some sort of newcomer challenges, getting to know new culture, language, getting to know people, and so on and so forth. So from that perspective, it takes a bit of adjusting. It takes getting used to how things work, how the system works, right? But once you start getting that experience under your belt in terms of work experience, getting better, communicating, prioritizing, structuring, organizing, and working with people, then I think, honestly, I don't see, much of a difference between if you are an immigrant or if you are, a Dane in this case, or an American in that case, because at the end of the day, we are all people. And if we're able to connect people person to person, I don't think it matters, if you're, if you came from another country or if you have a different, color scheme. I think it's irrelevant. But of course, there are some, sometimes perceptions, and when we prefer to work, with, let's say, a local company versus an outsourced company, yes, there will be some preferences. If I'm a coach and there's another Danish coach, maybe a person would prefer to speak Danish, and I can speak it, but I wouldn't be able to communicate in the same way. And I mean, that is also fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Connecting is the most important thing. But because I was doing some research on book publishing as well, there is an interesting statistics that female authors are being read mostly by females, especially in the space of business. Somehow men don't pick up those books. So like this is the statistics. So I wonder, how is the statistics in terms of the immigrant and similar different demographics. And then I have some friends who are publishing books back home in Russian. And that because that's the mostly widespread language, even though they could also publish in Kazakh. Or they could actually publish in English as well. But they chose to, so that because that audience will be more receptive to the book, to the idea. It will be more novel in that market. So I see those reasons as well. But kudos to you for doing a universal topic, a very human topic, and opening up to the world, because English is very widespread. So now it can come to, every English-speaking country, basically. So I'm really inspired by that. And I think that is very, very cool. And I really love it. So I wish you good luck. And I would like for you to add something that you would like to add to our conversation today without a question. Just say what you want.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your show, to your podcast. It means so much. And I think, what I started to do, with my personal journey, I hope that people can resonate with some of it. We're all going through, as I keep saying, through similar struggles, through similar pains. And I hope, a person who feels a little bit stuck, who feels a little bit, unmotivated and unsure of their direction in life, or maybe they feel overwhelmed or a bit overworked where they are at work, and they maybe even procrastinate on things that are important in their life. I hope they will pick up this book, because this is something that I've put my heart into, and because to some capacity I've experienced all of that, what I just mentioned, and I really wanted to. That's what I feel so excited about and motivated to share this, to share just a little bit of my journey, because I think, because we're going through similar journeys, again, we all have different backgrounds and circumstances and conditions and whatnot, backgrounds, but there is something that we all share, in terms of stress we experience, overwhelm that we have, overwork, and most of the time it's the same root causes. It's the same, you can say, causes really. So, and once we understand how to tap into that, oh my God, a lot of things will change.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm grateful that I was able to connect with you. You're a friend of my big friend Bakhtiar. So that is amazing that our network is shaping up the world, and a lot of different people are doing amazing things all over the world. And I wish you best of luck, and hope to see you soon with new books, with speeches on conferences and tours. So all the best.
Thank you so much, Anna. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And all the best to you. And with Open School of Business. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.